Okay, it is the end of 2022 officially. It is December 31st, and I thought I'd commemorate by doing a topical video. So I'm at my local county park. It's basically a fairly large lake with a nice nature trail, lots of foliage around. The air is pretty clean over here. People can walk their dogs and horses. It's a good exercise route, actually. But what's interesting is that very frequently over the last few months, there's been a sign outside the entrance of the lake park that says there's no lake activities permitted, no swimming or wading due to an abundance of dangerous bacteria levels in the water. These bacteria are typically algae, which are mostly cyanobacteria. It's just a specific type of bacteria. And what's dangerous about them is that in certain conditions they can bloom. They're called algae blooms. Basically, their population growth explodes, and as a result, they throw the waterway ecosystem pretty out of whack. Typically, algae blooms occur when there is a pH imbalance in the water, when the saline levels get messed up, but most frequently they're directly related to temperature and phosphates in the water levels. Phosphates are a very common byproduct from chemical factories and other forms of industry that like to sort of dump their toxic wastes into the waterways. Now, in Florida, where I am, in the 70s, there was this law passed called the Clean Water Act, I believe, of 1978, which gave the EPA some pretty heavy regulatory power over what could and couldn't be dumped in the water. That was repealed and then placed back in again, so it's sort of in legal weird territory right now. But anyway, the algae blooms are dangerous because what they do is they actually take oxygen out of the water. And by taking oxygen out of the water, this kills off the marine wildlife, the fish. This is a freshwater lake, but there's freshwater fish. There's some turtles and a lot of ducks and birds on the other side of the lake. When the algae finally dies, the bacteria and the other microorganisms that actually eat off of it leave what's known as a dead zone. The dead zone is where, once the algae is consumed, they still don't release any oxygen. So the problem with that is that these dead zones are very persistent environmentally. They last for weeks, sometimes months, and they can kill off a lot of fish in the meantime. Now, why is this important? Well, like I mentioned earlier, the air is pretty clean around here. This is a very nice little park that I like to go to. It's pretty close to my house anyway. But that clean air, even though a lot of it is in fact coming from the trees, from the greenery around us, the vast majority of the world's oxygen actually comes from deep ocean algae. And that is the topic of today's video. We are going to talk about exactly how oxygen is produced during the photosynthesis process. We're going to talk about different metabolic pathways in both plants and animals, how they use energy. And during the second part, we are going to extract some chlorophyll from some of these green leaves, not these specifically. And we're going to do some fun chemical shit to them. So let's see what we can do.